Welcome to In the Know with Mark Fusco, sponsored by Jiu-Te. I'm an 8th degree black belt in karate and a 7th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. I've got 46 years of experience in the arts, and I'd like to spend a little time with you today on a topic that causes a lot of confusion whenever we talk. We have YouTube videos, we talk amongst martial artists and self-defense experts, and that's the idea of what's the difference between self-defense and fighting. Okay, and we tend to get those things confused a little bit. They are not exactly the same, although they do have some overlap. And if you'll take a look, I've brought up a great visual for us, and that is a wonderful Venn diagram, if you remember those from high school. And so we've got self-defense on the left. We've got fighting or consensual violence on the right, where everybody has agreed to it. And then you'll see there's an area of overlap in the middle. So what do we mean by self-defense? Well, I think we're looking at a situation where we have an enraged, committed attacker, for example. We have somebody who definitely has the desire to bring violence to you, but that may not be your intention or where you were originally with the whole situation when it comes into play. On the other hand, we look at fighting. So there could be fighting in terms of prize fighting, okay, going into the octagon. But there's also that fighting where two people decide to just get it on, okay? Hey, I've had enough of you. I've had enough of you. That's it. Let's solve it, all right? And they go out back. Hey, they have agreed to fight. And it's a little bit different situation. The skills and the training methods used for one and for the other are not always the same. And so often we have somebody looking at these from different paradigms. So if you're a professional fighter or you follow professional fighting and you look at some of the self-defense skills, you're going, hey, this doesn't make much sense. That would never work. Well, true, because you're in a different, your body's already in a stance, you've already lowered your weight, you've got your muscles prepared with the right tension, your mind is in the right place for combat. All these things are different if you have agreed to fight. In a self-defense situation, you may just have somebody on you immediately. So you're dealing with somebody who's committed, they see an opportunity, and they go for it all the way through. So you could kind of look at it this way. Let's take it to knives for a second. Consider two people that are knife sparring for training. Okay, so they've both got padded knives and they are sparring with each other. They have agreed to this. We're going to see a lot more faking. We're going to see them trying to put together combinations. They're going to be working their distance more, a lot more in and out movement, lateral movement, attacking from different angles. All these things are going to be there, and they will seldom commit, okay, until they know they have set it up well. Now, let's flip over to the other side, the self-defense side. And we're looking at that situation. We tend to have somebody who is committed. They're looking to do damage right now. Let's say, for example, it's a person with a knife and one without, and the person with the knife is the one attacking. In that case, they're going to feel a sense of superiority. They're going to have this feeling that, hey, I'm the one in control of the situation because I have the weapon, and they will commit more often than you would see in terms of a fighting situation. And then we have this area of overlap in the center, which uses skills and training methods from both self-defense ideas and from sparring ideas. So I think when we think about fighting and sparring, everybody has a good idea of what that is because we've seen it a lot. And for those of you that have spent this much time to listen, have probably participated in it quite a bit. If we think about the self-defense side, let me bring up a couple different ways to train. All right, so you can see how I'm showing a difference here. So, for example, in Jiu-Te, we use an I and a Y drill. So I drill is probably a little bit easier to explain. So you have a person in the center. There's one standing in front of them 2 arm lengths away, and there's one behind them only 1 arm length away. The person in the center is the one that's going to be attacked. They close their eyes, and while their eyes are closed, the person in front and the person behind decide who's going to do the attack. On the command eyes open, whoever is the attacker will then immediately start with their attack. So we've got a couple things that are happening here. We've got a situation where we don't know if it's coming from the front or the back, and we don't know what kind of attack it is. Now, from the back, we limit it to some sort of grab, like a rear choke, a rear bear hug, something like that, grabbing the shoulder and spinning them to punch. All right. From the front, Hey, it could be a punch, a kick, a combination. It could be a grab, could be a choke. Any of those things could happen. So this is a higher level drill for self-defense that allows somebody who's been working through techniques and technique sequences and then has been attacked. Let's say they've been working two different technique sequences, then they might be attacked different ways. So they have to respond with either one of those technique sequences. And then we're hoping by the time they get to an eye drill that it forces them to use improvisation, that they're adapting on the fly to make that happen. So in a sense, just like in sparring that you have to learn to adapt on the fly, you have to have the right drills in self-defense in order to get somebody to adapt as the situation changes. Now, the wide drill is a little more complicated because as a person in center with 3 people available, one of the things you can do to amp this up is include a weapon so that they don't know while their eyes are closed that a weapon may be employed. So that's another step, a higher level up. Another one you could do is, hey, when one person attacks, they get a certain amount of time in order to deal with that attack effectively, and if they haven't, then the other person can join in, and then it's now 2 against 1 or 3 against 1, and so that puts them under more pressure to have to deal with the situation quicker. Now, what about this area, the overlap in the center? Well, this overlap area, there are certain techniques that you can pull from. You can pull in either direction. They can be used for both self-defense, and they can also be used for sparring. Okay, so what do I mean by that? For example, there's an uppercut punch that's used in the kata and the Hanji Shodan. When we think of kata, we tend to think strictly self-defense and no sparring, fighting application where people are squared off against each other. But that inverted punch is a great way to throw a lead when you're sparring because it comes from an unusual angle. So there's just a very simple idea that that punch that's normally used in self-defense can also be used in sparring. There's footwork that you can set up that can be used both in self-defense and in sparring. And if you have some interest in that, I would ask you to check out my kata versus MMA program. Yep, you heard that right, kata versus MMA. Now, I'm not focused on the ring and a sporting situation. I'm thinking about people who are bringing MMA skills into street violence, okay? So in this sense, it's it's focused towards that middle ground, because you've got MMA type skills, which are a fighting skill set, sparring skill set that are being used what could be in a self-defense situation. So I was very, I was very specific in the way I chose the techniques that went into this program. A lot of these, we call it bunkai in karate. A lot of these technique understandings are technique understandings that I've developed through the years. So if you've got some interest in trying to see what this overlap area is like, I would suggest you check out the kata versus MMA program. I think that if you take a step back and you think about some of the arguments you've had between yourself and other people, whether it's online or face-to-face about things in the martial arts world, it could have been because one of you was coming from the self-defense perspective and one of you was coming from the sparring or the fighting perspective. And in a sense, they only meet in a small overlap area. And I can see why there are so many disagreements about what will work and what won't work in terms of technique and in terms of training. I hope you've enjoyed this. This is In the Know with Mark Fusco, brought to you by Jiu-Te. Please help us continue to bring you some great videos by subscribing to our channel and sharing our videos.